Boker Tov Chavrim, I'm Stephen Benin. You're watching Israeli News Live, and this morning, guys, we saw an incredible story on breaking Israel news, and that is that they have discovered the oldest 10 Commandments written in Paleo Hebrew on a stone. A huge, I think it's an 80-ton stone, if I'm not mistaken, on the size of that, found in New Mexico, of all places. Now, Paleo Hebrew, guys, has been out of use for some maybe 500 years before the modern era, the coming of Christ. And so for a paleo stone, a stone to be found with paleo, the 10 Commandments of the Paleo Hebrew to be found inside of New Mexico lets us know that there is a lot of truth that yes, indeed, there is a relationship between the Native Americans and the House of Israel in exile. So I just think it's fascinating. I know that there was a lot of belief that there are DNA references to, or not DNA, but so much as, I think a small DNA portion of the Jewish people related to the Cherokee Indians, but also there's been other artifacts found among the Cherokee Indians. So now in New Mexico, so we can see the house of Israel has certainly been scattered to the four winds of the earth as the prophecy was stated.
Now here I am thinking that lying is a sin, but yet it must not be a sin, because this person obviously is telling a lie, especially if you consider it breaking news for an object that was supposedly discovered in the 1930s to be breaking news at the time frame of this recording. He could have recorded this in the 80s. He could have recorded it in the 70s. He could have recorded it in the 90s, the 2000s. It would not matter. This so-called discovery by which he's talking about, the Los Lunas Decalogue, ¿Qué pasa? But the Los Lunas Decalogue was supposedly discovered by a man named Frank Hibben in the 1930s. Frank Hibben, who was a professor at the University of New Mexico, has been known to have claimed forgeries and made forgeries during his tenure as an archaeology professor at the University of Mexico. He's also in cahoots with people like Cyrus Gordon and Bell, and who also made fabricated claims according to this stone. They claim that the inscriptions demonstrate that they were Hebrews who came to the Americas long pre-Columbian. And this has been deemed a forgery, known as a forgery, for decades. Yet this Hebrew Jew Christian person wants you to believe that it is proof that the Israelites were scattered to the four winds of the earth, that the children of Ham and Cain and Shem and Japheth are the progenitors of all the people around the world, and that when the Romans dispersed the people, when the Assyrians dispersed the people, when the Babylonians dispersed the people, that they went to all these different parts of the world. Yet we know that they became absorbed by the Assyrians and absorbed by the Babylonians, and that only the southern tribes of Benjamin and Judah remained in the land of Judah until the Romans came, and then they were sent out again. But this diaspora of Jews did not come to the Americas. So this Decalogue, which the Tourism Board of New Mexico still charges you $35 to go and see this known forgery, because it's a moneymaker for them. It has been demonstrated that, yes, some of the lettering is written in Paleo Hebrew. Some of the other lettering is written in ancient Sumerian that is prior to Paleo Hebrew. Some of the other letters are written in Greek. And with this mixture of lettering and the different types of writings and the way that it is written, the grammatical errors that it has, it is theorized that it was done as a forgery by someone who knew very little Hebrew, or it was done by a scribe who knew very little Hebrew, in around the 19th century, or it was done by Frank Hibben himself because he would fit the criteria of someone who knew very little Hebrew. But it was also theorized that during the Mexican-American War, that a garrison of Mormon troops possibly could have wrote this inscription, and with them knowing very little Hebrew, um, being not scholastically inclined to be able to do this perfectly, that is the other and possibly the more plausible explanation, other than Frank Hibben just doing a complete forgery. Now, one of the other problematic things with it is that if let's just say if, because if was a fifth, we'd all be drunk. If some Hebrews had came to the Americas, landed on the East Coast, no, let's make it easy for them, landed within the Gulf of Mexico, somewhere along the Texas border, and made their way up to New Mexico, carved out this stone. Certainly an expedition of that level would have left some type of ancient Hebrew settlements. There would have been some ancient Hebrew pottery, some crossing through this desert. There would have been some type of pottery, some types of settlements that would have been left behind, long-term campsites, something of that nature would have been left behind in order for them to have gotten through to New Mexico. And I know many people would like to believe that the Americas is really ancient Israel and ancient Egypt, and the Nile River is actually the Mississippi, and all these other sorts of things. But and the Mormons like to believe that Jesus came to the Americas and established his covenant here in the Americas. And that is why there are so many places that are named the same way as places in the Bible. Let's not forget that people who came to the Americas believed in the Bible and then named these places once they got there. The names of every place in America, for the most part, almost every place in America, is not the original name. It is the natives had different names. Europeans gave it different names once they got here. Free Africans gave different names once they moved into place. The Mormons gave different names once they moved into Utah. People created these names after they knew the Bible. Then they made up those names. But this Local Luna stone is just a complete forgery. You can read a lot more about it. Just Google it from even theological seminary schools recognize this as a forgery. So keep trying, Christians, but I really thought lying was a sin. So always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.